Well, we have had a much better week this past week. Spent a lot of time up here in Ayers Dugout. Again, a lot of shell, man. A lot of these fish are still hanging out on shell, doing in and around those kinds of things. We work these shorelines here. We worked this little S reef that's out here in the middle of Mesquite. It's been pretty good. The dugout's been pretty good. All the shell that's around that area. Again, over here on Ayers Reef, all the way down here to Roddy Island and Ayers Island, all this area back through here. Worked a little bit. There's a couple of little shell pads that are out of here on Ayers. You can work around those, and of course we spent some time here on the second chain, wading in and around those. We have, our tides are still pretty low for the most part. They're not negative, but they're still on the low end. So a lot of those little reefs that are out there have showed up, so you can jump out on them and wade those. So it's been pretty good for the most part. Like I say, the trout bite's still pretty good early. We tried to really focus on the major over this past week. Got a few of the minors in, but not many. As we're now on that transition moon, fixing to get into that new moon phase here in the next few days. But our major overs were pretty good for the most part. The bites were lasting anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour 15, that we're having opportunities during those time frames. And that's when we caught the majority of our fish. Winds have picked up in the last few days in the afternoons. We started getting into the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wind was picked up. We had a big tournament this past Saturday. A lot of extra boats. I think there's probably even more boats on the water this past Saturday than there was during the 4th of July weekend. So it's kind of surprising. But, that's how it rolls sometimes. It just kind of funny. But again, like I say, shell for your trout. You can catch any redfish in and around these, which is kind of odd. Usually, even up shallow, you'll find a few redfish that are kind of hanging out in there, maybe single or double. But we did not find any that's primarily trout, and they were all decent trout. A lot of dinkers, 10 to 13s. But when we did catch better trout that were in the slot or maybe even over slot, we had a few fish that were in the 22 to 23 range, very fat, still got lots of eggs. A lot of these fish have lots of eggs still ready to lay. So if you're not having to keep the fish or want to keep the fish, and you see that those fish are still got those fat bellies on them, let them go, man. Let them have the opportunity to lay those eggs. So that does nothing to do anything but just help our estuaries that much more down the road in the next 2 or 3 years. We'll all benefit from it greatly. But if you have to keep a few, then so be it. But anyway, a lot of fish in the 15 to 18 range. And so we just kind of worked, like I say, the shell. We worked the shell a whole lot and had decent success, then more so than we did the prior week when we had the big moon that was in play. So, yeah, it was a much better week for me personally and for clients that I had on the boat this past week. So we had some really good days. Working these areas through here like that, just kind of find a little bit of protection up here in the little cove area like that, and just working the shorelines, just pulling fish off of that. Pretty consistent bite for the most part. But when it kind of died off, you start getting into that, I'd say 10:30ish, 11 o'clock range. That trout bite was really starting to taper off. And that's when we kind of start looking for redfish after that. So, and that will be a continuing trend. Doesn't matter if you're around a major or minor or not. You may have your new moon days that are coming. You may have the opportunity to have some really prolific days in and around this time frame. Like I say, the trout bite has gotten better this last past week for me, locating and finding them. Main baits, we used a little bit bigger baits. We're throwing the knock and tail more. We were throwing more of the original and the supermodel size for the down south. We were throwing more of the Pav lures in the 5 and 6 inch, the Coastal Brews in the 5 and 6 inch, and having moderate success with that size frame. Another one that's been pretty good too, just, it's a shorter profile, a little bit fatter profile, is the Soft Dine. Has been good. Another bait that's really been good for us has been the Double D. Like I say, we've had some lower tides consistently this past week. There's nothing that's real big. Depending on what estuary you fished in, it really didn't matter. Just looking at all the different tide reports. So we were trying to get edges. We try to find that thigh deep, and then move over 15 or 20 feet, and then you're belly deep. So once we found that kind of edge, that's where the double D really kicked in for us, and the soft down really did good for us in that particular area, the original size in the down south. And we threw that in a bunch of different flavors. We threw that in the Twisted Tea. We threw that in the Watermelon Red. We threw that in the White Ice and the Bone Diamond, Purple Rain. All those different flavors like that in the original size. And, of course, the Knock and Tell, the one flavor that really stuck out was the Greenback that did really well for us. Soft Down was one I like to throw a lot. It's just a regular old gray sides and black back. It mimics a mullet. You can really work that thing in the Double D. I don't remember all the flavors in the Double D, but the main one that stuck out to me was the Gringo. That one did pretty good, especially in a little bit more off-color or stained water. It did really good. Had a lot of action with it. Just kind of reel that thing down, let it suspend, and when it was sitting there suspended is when we were getting most of our bites. Working it too, did pretty good. Starting to notice a little bit more grass. Starting to come back out here on the Ayers Point and all this area here. So hopefully that will continue to grow and get in more and more healthy on that. Once upon a time, this particular shoreline here on Ayers was outstanding. It had grass all over it out to about 200 yards out. So it's still kind of spotty. And if you can find the deeper grass beds and that, you're going to have some pretty good days, because those fish, once that sun gets up to around that 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock time frame, that's where kind of what we started targeting. We were, fishing and wading in 2.5 to 3 foot of water, throwing it out to 5 foot of water. So, yeah, those fish are pulling back off. They want to be comfortable. They want to be in that little bit cooler water, and in that time of day, that water out in that depth does really well for us. So that was kind of our target frame this past week in that. Shallow early, deeper late. Targeting the majors and minors in and around those time frames if it worked out to your fishing day. Like I said, we had to contend with some higher winds as the week progressed. But it was okay. Like I say, we had some pretty good days on the water, fishing in and around those time frames. Lots of bait out there. So you shouldn't really have too much of an issue locating your predator fish in and around that. But if you're going to fish up here in the Mesquite area, like I say, when those winds kind of crank up, these areas up here in Mesquite and Ayers, both in and around the reefs, they get kind of dirty. They dirty up pretty quick. So something that's making a little bit of noise, like the Knock and Tail or the Double D or the Soft Dine, or even if you want to put something on that's got a little bit of chartreuse on it, like the Mirror Lure Chicken. Also in the Mirror Lure, we were throwing a lot of the Truth, throwing the Bone Diamond in that as well. And the chicken, like I say, it had just a little bit of chartreuse on it. It did okay with that, especially in the dirtier water. So that was kind of our game plan this past week, and that's what we stuck with, and we had pretty good days out on the water this past week. Down here, Lydia Ann Channel, I don't spend very much time this far south mostly, but on a particular day that we fished here, we fished this little grass line all the way down here by the lighthouse, where the Lighthouse Lakes dumps out. If you fished in here, you know about that little gut that's there between the grass line and the shore. So we got on the flat, kind of worked that grass, worked off the little bit deeper edge, the guts that's there. You can come all the way down past the lighthouse, and you get on this little flat that's right into this areas here. You have to kind of fish. You can fish the gut, and if you want to walk up into that area or run your boat up into that, you can get all up in this area here. But like I said, very seldom do I do that, and then I get out here on this outer edge where it's a little bit more hard packed, a little bit of scattered grass here. We had some pretty good day. We only spent one day on this, but it was pretty successful for the most part. Caught a lot of fish, a lot of trout, which we were primarily focusing on. Again, what I was talking about, a lot of dinkers, 12 to 14s, but when we would catch one that was in the slot, it was a quality fish. It'd be 17, 18, 19-inch fish. It was what I mentioned in the last video. Still a lot of eggs in these fish. So if you can, cut them loose, man. Let them do their thing. But we worked down this shoreline here all the way up toward close to quarantine. Didn't get on quarantine. Then we kind of shoot across over here to Super Flats. Get on here on this all this prolific grass that's in here. Potholes galore. If you haven't been on the Super Flats in a while, it is spectacular. Grass is healthy. You've got a lot of deeper guts in there. You've got deeper holes that are in there. Found a lot of fish up and down the Super Flats that one day that we fished on it. A lot of bait working in here. You just have to wade through. A lot of patience. The great thing about throwing artificials is you're not having to constantly change out a bait. You know, if you're throwing cut or some type of live mullet or maybe shrimp or something, croaker or whatever, you're going to go through them pretty quick, I could imagine. But throwing the plastics, you know, had a lot of tail biters too, though. That one particular day we did go through a lot of baits, but that's a great thing about that. You have a lot of opportunity to catch you some fish. Worked it all the way out here to the point primarily and just kind of stayed in this area and just kind of fished that deeper edge, especially as the day would progress. Saying get up into that 10, 11 o'clock hour, that bite's really starting to taper off on you. The trout bite is starting to lay down a little bit, and that water, they start to pull off in that deeper water. I remember we were fishing almost chest deep at one point in time, throwing out to even deeper water and finding those fish. So it was pretty cool day that we spent there. Very productive. Again, the same baits what I just mentioned in the down south. We threw a lot of the originals. Copperfield was one that was really good for us this past week in the original size. Then the Twisted Tea, Big Papa, the same ones, White Ice, Bone Diamond. Those are the standards that we throw with. Mixed in a little bit of the Watermelon Red in the original size. In the mirror lures, it was the Truth in the Watermelon Red that was the best. Now, when we found a little bit cleaner, clearer water, we were throwing the kitchen sink, and it was doing very well as well. Didn't throw any of the soft dines on here. We did throw some double Ds. Did pretty good with the double Ds as well. Again, early, working that kind of stuff early on. 16th ounce jig heads. The knock and tail, the one that was really good was the greenback. That did really well for us. Got a little bit bigger paddle on it. We did throw some burners in there as well. Purple Rain, Twisted Tea in the burner shad. White Ice, Bone Diamond, Firecracker was pretty good. Just a variety of different colors that we were working in here because that water was really clean the day that we fished it. So it's pretty protected for the most part off that southeast breeze. Now you had a little, had to contend with some stuff, a little bit of boat traffic here and there, but it wasn't bad. Wasn't bad at all. And if I remember correctly, the day that we did fish here, the winds were pretty kind to us early on, but they did pick up as the day progressed. So working that, and then of course if you get here on the backside, you're really protected here from that southeast breeze, and you got a little bit deeper gut that's out here. It's got a nice little trough for you, and those fish were kind of not necessarily stacked in there, but we caught quite a few that were in that area, especially around that major time frame. So if you're going to work in and around this back area here, you got a lot of great grass, which these fish are hanging on because, again, they're laying eggs, so they're looking for that kind of stuff. And you see a lot of these female trout that their old bellies are irritated, they're red, trying to get those beds ready to go. And another little good indicator for you is if you're starting to catch a lot of little male trout, more than likely you're going to have a better female that's going to be in and around that area. So just pay attention to your signs. Practice a little patience that are out there, especially for this upcoming week, and y'all have a good time. Down here in Port Bay, we got down here on this shoreline here on one day. So we're just going to work the grass line. We didn't start all the way down to the sand ramp there off 188. We got a little further up. Worked the little flat that's out here. Did pretty well. Caught some decent fish that were in there. We caught some mid-17s that were off this flat and came off this point. Worked out just a little bit deeper, and then came down this west shoreline here in Port Bay and worked all that. Worked that edge. Worked the shoreline. Caught a variety of fish on this particular day that we fished this. I mean, we had trout, black drum, flounder, redfish, a little bit of everything that was in there. So it was a nice variety. Not huge numbers as far as amount of fish caught, but it was more quality fish that we caught on this time that we fished this here, and just kind of worked this shoreline. Again, if you haven't waded this particular area before, here in Port Bay, you got your shallow area that's up close to the shoreline, and about 20 yards out, you have a nice little subtle edge that drops off. It's not a huge drop off, but it's there. A lot of those fish were hanging off on that, especially later in the day, or later in the morning, should I say. Again, warmer temperatures starting to heat our water up. We're consistently starting in the low 80s, 82, 83, and it's starting to warm up to around 85. So those fish notice that difference, and they like that, so they kind of pull off. But you can find your fish if you're getting on the water by 6:15. You should have some pretty good opportunities. Again, a lot of bait working up here and down this shoreline. Just work down this area through here. Just work the grass, work the edges. Find where your bait's kind of concentrated. If your time frame works out for you to work that major or minor, that's when we had most of our opportunities, was during that time frame. What I did notice, especially as we got into the weekend time frame, that the first half of the major over was the most productive time frame, and as we got past that mid mark of the major, it started to kind of taper off on the back edge of that, and it kind of coincided with being later in the morning too, so made sense. But we had our opportunities, and that's what you're looking for. You continue to work all this area, this nice little flat that's back in here. I like to fish this a little bit more so in the wintertime because it's got a little bit more mud and grass and a little scattered shell that's in there, and then of course the little grass island that's right here. You work off that deeper edge. And then again, later in the day, later in the morning, you've got that drop off here, this little deeper water. You got that cut through there, so we get out there on that, and that's where we're fishing, like that belly deep water, throwing it out to even deeper water than that. And we were finding fish that were hanging off that deeper edge. So again, we were throwing the down south in the original size. We were throwing them in the burner shad size in the same flavors, what I've mentioned. All that same size, 16th ounce jig head, just working that deeper edge later in the day. Early morning, up close, we were knee deep, thigh deep water, finding our fish that were hanging out in those types of areas. And just kind of worked around here like you're headed down toward the shrimp farm that's back there. You work all this area here. You've got a lot of good stuff that's in here structure-wise for you. You got some scattered shell. You've got the grass. You've got the edges. So, and that's where we're finding our trout. And that's going to be, it's going to be a continuing trend because we're, over halfway through July now. August is right dead in front of us. And if August does like August typically does in years past, it's going to get really hot. And so those fish are going to be more contrary to want to eat. So finding them out here in that deeper water, even right now, is going to be a good thing for you, especially when we get into the August month. So you probably may want to start maybe in that deeper water early, but time will tell, and we'll see what happens. We still got roughly 2 weeks left in July. So just concentrate your areas on this, and if you're going to move, once you move to a different location, kind of take that same pattern with you. We kind of transitioned over to Rattlesnake a little bit and Pete's Bend a little bit, but they're all good areas. They're all pretty similar, same type of structure, same type of bottoms that were in there. Again, lots of bait. Not as many boats over here during the week, which is a great thing. If you're able to fish during the week, that's when you're going to have less traffic on the water as opposed to the weekends. Obviously, that's because most people have Saturdays off, so that's when they're going to be on the water, and that's when they spend some time out there. So if you can avoid that, do so. If you cannot, then you just do the best that you can, and make sure that you have 2, 3, 4 locations in your back pocket. So if a particular area is covered up with some boats or got some people in a location that you want to fish, you can go hit it another location that's real similar to that. But again, the down south in the original and the burner shad, threw a little of the supermodels that were in there. Again, we got the new moon that's coming, won't be far away. Hopefully that will be a very productive time frame once we get to that point, and then just incorporate those majors and minors into your day, and then see if you can extend your bites, especially when it gets warmer.